The woman sat alone on Christmas Eve with a cold cup of tea trembling between her hands, her reflection staring back at her from the café window like a stranger she no longer recognized, and in that moment the weight of every loss she had buried all year pressed down on her chest at once, making the lights outside blur into something painfully distant. This was supposed to be a night of warmth, of laughter, of belonging, yet she was wrapped only in silence and memories that refused to stay quiet. Before the story unfolds any further, take a second to pause here. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and small moments that change lives, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to channel name, because stories like this are reminders that humanity still matters. Her name was Clara, and Christmas had once been her favorite season. It used to smell like cinnamon and pine, sound like soft music drifting through a warm apartment, and feel like safety. But this year, Christmas felt hollow. 12 months earlier, she had lost her mother after a long illness that drained not just the woman she loved, but also the savings, strength, and hope Clara had carefully built. Then came the layoffs at work, the eviction notice she hid in a drawer, and the quiet drifting away of friends who did not know how to sit beside grief. By December, she was living in a small rented room, working temporary shifts, and carrying an exhaustion that sleep never touched. Christmas Eve found her wandering the streets aimlessly until the cold forced her into the nearest café, a place glowing with decorations meant to invite joy, not loneliness. The café was busy with families and couples, coats piled on chairs, laughter spilling over tables. Clara chose the farthest corner, shrinking into herself as if she could become invisible. She watched other people unwrap small gifts, share desserts, and lean toward one another with ease. Each scene felt like a quiet reminder of everything she had lost. Her phone lay face down beside her cup, silent all evening. No messages. No missed calls. She told herself she was strong, that she had survived worse days, but strength felt fragile tonight. It took effort just to keep breathing evenly, to keep the tears from spilling in a place full of strangers. What Clara didn't know was that this night was also heavy for someone else walking through the same door. A single father named Daniel stepped inside with his young daughter, Lily, shaking snow from their coats. Daniel carried the kind of tired that settled into the bones, the result of years spent doing everything alone. Lily's mother had died when Lily was still small, leaving Daniel to learn how to braid hair, pack lunches, and hold his grief together so his daughter could feel safe. Christmas was complicated for them too. They celebrated because Lily deserved joy, but Daniel always felt the ache of what was missing. This year, money was tight, and their celebration was simple, but Daniel had promised Lily hot chocolate and a treat, something small to make the night feel special. As they moved through the café, Lily's excitement stood out like a small light. She took in the decorations with wide eyes, humming softly to herself, clutching a small paper bag that held a handmade ornament she insisted on giving to someone special tonight. Daniel didn't yet know who that someone would be, but he followed Lily's lead, trusting her instincts in ways that had surprised him since she was little. They found a table near the center, and while Daniel waited for their order, Lily's gaze wandered, eventually settling on the woman sitting alone in the corner. Children notice what adults train themselves to ignore. Lily saw the way Clara's shoulders curved inward, the way her hands shook slightly, the sadness that seemed heavier than the winter coat draped beside her. To Lily, it felt wrong that someone should be alone on a night meant for togetherness. She tugged gently at her father's sleeve, her eyes never leaving Clara. Daniel followed her gaze and felt something twist inside him. He recognized that look, the look of someone barely holding themselves together in public. Daniel hesitated. Approaching a stranger was not easy, and he worried about crossing a boundary. But Lily's quiet determination reminded him of the many times strangers had helped them when he least expected it, meals dropped off after his wife's funeral, teachers who stayed late, neighbors who checked in. Kindness, he had learned, often arrived unannounced. He nodded to Lily, and together they slowly walked toward Clara's table. Clara noticed them only when Lily stood near her, small boots planted firmly on the floor. For a split second, Clara felt embarrassed, caught in her sadness. She straightened slightly, forcing a polite expression. Daniel stood just behind Lily, offering a gentle, respectful presence. There were no dramatic gestures, no grand speeches, just the simple warmth of human closeness. Lily reached into her bag and carefully placed the handmade ornament on the table, its paper edges slightly uneven, glitter catching the light. Clara stared at it, confused at first, then stunned. The ornament was simple, but it carried something deeper. It was a reminder that someone had seen her. That she was not invisible. Clara felt a tightness in her chest break open, emotion flooding in faster than she could stop it. Tears welled in her eyes, not from sadness alone this time, but from the shock of unexpected kindness. Daniel watched quietly, giving her space, while Lily smiled with the unfiltered sincerity only a child could offer. What followed was not a dramatic transformation but a gentle shift. Daniel asked if they could sit for a moment, and Clara nodded. They shared the table, sharing warmth, presence, and the unspoken understanding that life had been unkind to all of them in different ways. Clara found herself relaxing, her shoulders easing as Lily chatted about school, about snow, about how Christmas lights made everything feel better. Daniel listened, occasionally adding small details about their traditions, about learning to move forward one day at a time. For Clara, the night began to soften. She spoke about her mother, about the year that had taken everything she thought defined her. She admitted how hard it was to keep believing things could change. Daniel didn't try to fix anything. He didn't offer empty reassurance. He simply listened, nodding with empathy born from experience. In that shared silence between sentences, Clara felt something she hadn't felt in months, understood. As time passed, the café slowly emptied. Outside, snow continued to fall, quiet and steady. Clara realized she was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in what felt like forever. The loneliness that had wrapped around her earlier loosened its grip. She wasn't suddenly healed, and her problems didn't disappear, but the weight felt lighter. The world felt less cold. Lily leaned against her father, growing sleepy, her small act of kindness complete without her fully understanding its impact. When it was time for Daniel and Lily to leave, there was a shared reluctance, the kind that comes when something meaningful is about to end. They exchanged warm wishes, and Daniel gently reminded Clara that tomorrow was a new day, even if it didn't feel like it yet. As they walked out into the snow, Clara watched them go, the ornament still resting on the table like proof that the night had been real. Clara stayed a little longer, finishing her tea, holding the ornament in her hands. She thought about how close she had come to giving up on the world, on people, on herself. And yet, here she was, heart cracked open by a child's kindness and a father's quiet compassion. She paid her bill and stepped outside, the cold air hitting her face, but it no longer felt cruel. The lights seemed brighter. The street felt alive again. In the days that followed, Clara carried that moment with her. She hung the ornament in her small room, a reminder that even in the darkest seasons, connection could appear without warning. It gave her the courage to apply for new opportunities, to reach out instead of retreating, to believe that her story was not finished. She began volunteering at a local shelter, inspired by how a small act had changed her night. Each time she helped someone else, she felt a quiet echo of that Christmas Eve. Years later, Clara would look back on that night as a turning point. Not because everything magically improved, but because it restored her faith in people. It taught her that being seen could happen in the most unexpected ways, that kindness did not require grand gestures, only open hearts. Somewhere in the city, Daniel and Lily continued their lives too, likely never fully knowing how deeply they had touched a stranger. But that was the beauty of it. Kindness didn't need recognition to matter. If this story touched your heart even a little, if it reminded you of a time someone showed up for you when you needed it most, please take a moment now to like this video, share it, and subscribe to channel name. Your engagement helps keep stories like this alive, stories that remind us we're not alone. And before the video ends, I have one special request.